Look up from your telescope, take me on this journey home. I don't wanna wait no more.
What's good, y'all? It's your good sis Erica Vane back again with another amazing All-American video. Ooh, let's talk about episode 3 from season 2. This one's a doozy. All right, y'all. The episode opens up with Spencer really stuck in his head, distracted while at practice. He's thinking about the last words that he said to his dad the night before. He tells Corey that he didn't miss them because he basically replaced them. And that is just really ringing in his head. And when Spencer said it, y'all, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And as to be expected, like that's a very, very hard pill to swallow once we learn who Darnell is, what the setup was when reference to Darnell, and how Corey didn't see no problem in actually basically raising another man's kid for 7 years while his kid's set for 8 without him. Stupidity. If you haven't already, check out my episode 2 breakdown because I go in on Corey because it was absolutely ridiculous. What were you thinking, Corey? Utterly stupid. I was just so enraged. But anyway, we start the episode off on the football field of Beverly, and the football team is refocusing. Coach Billy Baker is back. They lost and they are done losing, and he is ready to kick them into gear and like get them back on the right track. And then we get to see a bunch of clips of that juxtaposed to Crenshaw and Corey, leading their practice and getting them ready. And then once we finish these football sequences, we see Jordan with his little attitude. He ends practice early. Billy kind of just lets him, and that's something that tracks throughout this whole episode in reference to Jordan being a distraction on the field and really just acting out because he's still pissed about Billy cheating on Laura and like all of the fallout around that. Him and Laura are the ones who have yet to forgive Billy yet. Olivia is fine for as far as we can tell with Billy, and this is again just manifesting on how Jordan is acting out at practice. We also get to see very early on in this episode we meet Cliff Mosley. Rochelle introduced her dad, who is the lead booster, and he basically just becomes an antagonist for Billy. He has great interest in Spencer. We get to see the relationship that he has with Billy. They have like a frenemy relationship, and ultimately we get to see that play out with like the subplots of like him trying to get another receiver over there and Billy blocking it, and him asserting his authority, like I'm not just going to be purse strings, I'm not just going to give y'all checks, like I'm a part of this team and this is basically my team and all that. So we definitely get to see the back and forth between him and Billy, and honestly the assertion that Billy has in standing up for himself with Cliff really mirrors what he needs to do with Jordan in reference to taking the reins back of this team and stepping back into his position and stop cowering behind some mistakes that he's made and some unfortunate things that have happened. And I love to see, I thought that it was really great how they kind of paired those things. At the top of the episode, we also get to see Spencer talking with Olivia, and this is one of the great scenes where we get to see exactly how close Olivia and Spencer are, because once he gets with Layla, we really just start to see them interact as friends and really stand tall for each other as friends. Spencer confides with Olivia very easily, and he's doing the same right here. He's talking about Jordan and Darnell. He's catching her up on like Jordan ending practice early and being an overall brat, and then how he feels about Darnell being there. And then he gets a text from Chris of like, oh, I'm cleared to run, so he could potentially be back in time. And Olivia is the one who points out like, well, if Darnell is there, then what is Chris coming back to? He's not coming back to his spot. And Spencer's like, well, I'm gonna handle that. And of course, because Spencer thinks he can handle every goddamn thing, he cooks up this whole idea to give his dad an ultimatum to send Darnell back to Nevada, and that will make him come back to Crenshaw. And while it was a very insensitive, selfish decision to make, I thought it was a really cool way for them to bring Spencer's story along and to help him process how he was feeling and to learn something. Because over the course of the episode, when he is pissed at his father, rightfully so, right, about what happened and how it all happened, forcing him to make an ultimatum, even though Corey doesn't actually choose, but putting it out there and then getting it put back in his face that Darnell was basically in the same situation that Spencer was in just a few months before. And Jordan helps him realize that by telling him, later on they're playing games and Spencer asks like, how did you get over, like he apologizes first and then he asks, how did you get over me interrupting your life like this? And Jordan tells him like, yo, I realized that my beef was never really with you. I didn't have a problem with you. All of it was just about my dad and my overall issues with him that were regardless of you. So once I realized that, and then my plans didn't work, and I realized that you was a cool dude, that's how I was able to get over it. And now they're on the path to being brothers. I love this scene with them too. Like I feel like this is one of the very few super grounded moments that show me that Spencer and Jordan do have a real relationship, regardless of like all of the other BS that Jordan pulls throughout the rest of the seasons. They do have a solid friendship, and Jordan has been able to receive a brother and a friend that he has never actually had before in Spencer, and I think he does value it, and that's what this scene told me. That put that in perspective for Spencer, but then this also came after Coop told him that he was dead wrong for giving his father that ultimatum and being selfish. Like, did he even think about Darnell and what Darnell could be returning to and what Darnell needs in this moment? Like, all of this is not about him, and he's using his anger about the situation and putting it off and basically punishing Darnell when it all has nothing to do with Darnell. So those two really help drive that home for him and get him to a place that by the end of the episode he decides to not return to Crenshaw, but then also go to Darnell and tell Darnell not to leave because it isn't necessarily about him. And then when he decides not to actually go back to Crenshaw but to stay and play in Beverly, he goes and tells his dad that and lets him know, like, yo, I'm choosing you as a father, not as a coach. Like, I can see what's happening with Jordan and Billy. And yo, Corey can't even let him get it out. He's like so excited. He's so proud of Spencer for making that decision. And in that moment, I was so proud of him too, because it was just a very, very mature stance to take. We love to see it. Like, Spencer literally spent the whole course of this episode processing this very big thing, these very big emotions, and really arrived at a very mature decision that many adults can't even arrive at. So for him to arrive at it, I was just like, yo, we love to see it. And this is one of the many reasons why we love Spencer James. Another little side beat that Spencer has in this episode is when he comes in and Grace asks for him to help with her studying, and he reminds her, like, what happened to Micah, and you need to make sure that you're still choosing and making space for yourself. Just tells him, like, oh, what happened to Micah is like Hurricane Corey came into town and then it disrupted everything. He's like, well, I just want you to still choose yourself and do what you got to do for you, which is what is going to be a seed that helps push Grace to go back down that Micah path. But then also right after he has that conversation, Billy shows up and he needs an answer, and he tells him, like, of course the answer, which we know we'll learn at the end of the episode because it happens before then, but he reaffirms to Billy, like, yo, you need to be sticking it to Jordan. Like, you need to hold Jordan accountable, because I know that you want your son back and you want him to like you again, but showing up as his coach on the field will actually do that. It won't actually push him away, but you letting him run over you and practice early, disrespect you, it's not only going to continue to ruin y'all's relationship personally, but it's going to have the team not respecting you and just have you out here looking crazy, which is great because that's something that just definitely needs to be said. Spencer also tells Jordan in a moment after they had that conversation of how did Jordan get over Spencer, you know, crashing his world and interrupting everything. And he tells him, because Jordan asked, like, yo, am I being a distraction? He's like, most definitely. But Spencer told him from a place of empathy, because he's like, well, I get it. Like, you're going through what you're going through with your father, but yeah, you're definitely being a distraction and you're acting out. And this is one of the things that helped Jordan get to a more self-reflective place and decide to adjust, because up until this point, he's been spending the winter break acting a fool, running through chicks. Like, Rochelle makes a comment early on talking about, oh, you stop running around chasing thought pockets. Like, literally everybody knows. And in this moment, he's like, oh, dang, maybe it is bad. And when he doesn't get chosen as the team captain, he actually looks at Billy square in the eyes and genuinely says, like, I'm going to work to get it back. Like, I realize that I've been messing up. And finally, we can start to see Jordan turn the corner, because you already know I've been waiting on Simone into the room like, hey girl, where you been? Because I can't stand this Jordan, this entitled, privileged prick of a Jordan. Now, what's happening with Olivia in this episode? She gets introduced to the idea of So Cal Muse because Laura signs her up, and Laura thinks this is a great idea for her, which actually turns out to be a wonderful idea. She gets kind of floored by the questions, but they ask you to tell them who you are and what is going to be your contribution. Like, what is your life's contribution, or what's going to be your life's work, or something like that. And Olivia gets stuck. And I think that this is one of the strongest things that we get about Olivia in the first 2 seasons as a whole, because she literally communicates to Laura after the fact, like, I'm struggling with this question because I don't know who I am, and I've spent so much time being a twin, or Billy Baker's daughter, or the girl who was addicted to pills, and I don't really know who I am, and I've spent so much time in all these other identities. Then we can see that this is the start of her journey to figure out who she is, which now that I've seen season 3, I'm like, yo, we definitely need more of this beat. I think that now I can register, like, okay, her trying all these things and making all the decisions that she makes could be her still on this path of, like, trying to figure out who she is and what she's doing doing and all of that. However, we still don't have strong enough beats to really know for sure. And I think that she is definitely still, like, by the end of season 3, she's still trying to figure out who she is. Now, don't get me wrong, there's people, spend their whole lives still figuring out different parts of themselves or learning different parts of themselves. Hell, I'm still learning so much about myself as I get exposed to new experiences and people and things in life. However, I think one of the things that I communicated that I struggle with is not necessarily knowing who Olivia is, or like at her foundational core. Like, who is she? What does she really, really stand for? What does she want? That's a huge thing. I still don't know what Olivia wants by the end of watching season 3. And I think it's so cool to see how she articulated it in this episode. This is very much so a strong pivotal moment for her character development. And I will be doing a video about the twins, both Olivia and Jordan, and their identity, specifically their journey in identity, because they both struggle with knowing who they are, specifically within the scope of their blackness, but then also knowing who they are in this world and really being more mindful about how they show up in it and being happy in how they show up in it. So I'm going to be making a video about that. So if you haven't already, be sure to hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss when I post that video, okay? Because it's coming, and it's coming sooner rather than later. But also in this episode, that's a really strong thing for Olivia. We get to see the start of So Cal Muse, which is going to be a really, really great thing for her. I'm really excited that Laura brought this into her life. I thought it was so cool that Olivia even registers when she reassociates with Kia at the start of the So Cal Muse meeting and connects with her in this way. She's like, yeah, my mom wanted me to come here because she thinks that this will help me tap back into my black culture. And with Olivia mentioning this, it just also just gives us so much by way of character development for Laura, so we can know that she actually does care about this particular part, and she wants her kids to be, well-rounded individuals and very grounded and know who they are. What I think is interesting though is, why didn't she feel the need to do something like this for Jordan? Or did she think that Jordan had football, so she doesn't necessarily have to connect her to the black community in that way? Interesting. Or maybe because Jordan is playing with Spencer, so then, you know what, I ain't gonna go down that route, but that's interesting. Also, while Olivia is walking into So Cal Muse, we see her on the phone with Layla, so we get a little bit of beats of their friendship, which I thought was really cool. But in this episode, we just really get to track or go along the journey of Layla's decline. Like, visually, y'all, Layla is not cute. Her clothes are a clear visual indication of her decline. She got these bracelets that's hiding something, and we kind of get that foreshadow at the start, and then we don't see it till the end, that there's some marks on her arms that Spencer peeps at the very end of the episode. But when she pops up on him at school and she says, you got to do what makes you happy, like you getting rid of Darnell, it's like even her giving bad advice or affirming something that's really terrible and selfish just gives you all the signs without you really realizing that something is wrong with this girl. Something is actually going on. Something is not right here. Even going into that little makeout session that was turning into something more really, really quickly. It's like she was completely acting out of character. She was completely being dismissive of like the feelings of others and kind of aloof. So in all honesty, in this episode, it just serves to really show us what's going on with Layla. And then we also get to see that she's still back at the hotel, even though she's saying that her dad done bought her these earrings and perfume and this and that. Her dad still has yet to come back. She's hiding this hotel from everyone, and this is definitely going to blow up in her face. I think the culmination of like something that's going on with Layla when she goes to the rap battle at the Crenshaw Cafe, and then she tries to put all this money down and to like, put up studio time with her dad and just make herself seem bigger than life or bigger than she is, and she's doing it unnecessarily. And for me, all it just screamed is like she wants attention in this moment. She wants to be seen so very bad, and she doesn't even register. Like, Spencer's like, put all this money away, girl, you are in the hood, don't be pulling out thousands of dollars, we are in the hood, what are you doing, child? We hate to see it, but Layla was definitely struggling in this episode. And shout out to Coop. I really do like the journey that we went on with Coop and her music. Like, the whole You Got Coop moment. Her little freestyle was actually kind of popping. I know you'll be coming for her music, but her freestyle was actually popping in this episode. And then we get the little battle. Unfortunately, she breezes through the first few opponents, but then when Layla ups the ante and adds the money, then a little host played by Lil Fizz, little corny self, even though Lil Fizz in real life is mad cool. Been to his restaurant, he's a really nice guy. But Lil Fizz on this show is raggedy, honey, raggedy. He decides to read Coop for Phil for everything that has happened in the last I'm gonna say last season and start of this one. He's talking about Sean. He's talking about her snitching. He's talking about everything to have her up there looking crazy. And she freezes. And I think that this was really cool. Like, I'm mad that Coop had to experience this, but it's really great that she did because it teaches her resilience. It teaches her to drop into what is something that already makes up her character in reference to being a very strong young woman. And even when she's having a conversation with Preach at the end and he's like, keep your options open because you froze, baby sis. She's like, just know I'm not going to give up. And we get that reaffirmation. And sometimes we really do have to go through some humiliation, some embarrassing moments, some things that just makes us feel like crap to really just drop down and like know for sure and confirm to ourselves like, this is who I am and I'm not going to give up. So at least we got to see that, y'all. At least we got to see that. But yeah, that is my breakdown of episode 3 from season 2. I hope you guys are liking the going back in time and me breaking down seasons 1 and 2. We are counting down the days to the premiere of season 4 of All American. I cannot wait. I recently just recorded my breakdown of the All American pilot script with the pilot episode, and I do a deep dive with the both of them and show you guys what's different from what was on the script versus what made it to screen. If you are a member, be sure to check that out because you guys are getting access to that video first. Hit the subscribe button and join the tribe so that you don't miss when that video is available for everyone. It's your good sis Erica Vane coming to you with new All American videos every day. I hope that you're enjoying it. Give me a comment. Let me know what you thought about this episode. Let me know what you want to see. Let me know all that in the comment section down below. If you missed any of my All American videos, I got my playlist link for you on screen right now. Get into it and I will see you in my next one. Bye.